Marcus Sterling had everything a man could want. At 42 years old, he owned a technology empire worth $3 billion. His company created software that banks around the world used every day. People called him a genius. Magazines put his picture on their covers. Politicians wanted to have dinner with him. His mansion sat on 50 acres in the most expensive part of town. The house had 28 rooms, including a library bigger than most people's entire homes. There were 3 swimming pools, a tennis court, and a garage that held 15 luxury cars. Everything was perfect, polished, and expensive. Marcus had been married to Victoria for 18 years. She was beautiful, elegant, and came from one of the oldest wealthy families in the country. Victoria spent her days organizing charity events and shopping with her friends. She looked perfect standing next to Marcus at business parties and social events. Their marriage seemed like something from a fairy tale, but fairy tales are not always real. The truth was that Marcus felt empty inside. He worked 16 hours every day building his business bigger and bigger. Victoria lived her own life, caring more about her social status than about him. They lived in the same huge house but barely spoke to each other anymore. When they did talk, it was usually about money, schedules, or which party to attend next. Their conversations had become cold and businesslike. "The charity dinner is Thursday," Victoria would say while checking her phone. "Wear the blue suit?" Marcus would nod and go back to his laptop. They slept in separate bedrooms. They ate meals at different times. They had become strangers who happened to share the same address. Everything changed the day Maria Santos started working in their house. Maria was 28 years old and had moved to America from Colombia 3 years earlier. She needed work to support her younger sister who was studying to become a nurse. When the employment agency sent her to interview for a position at the Sterling Mansion, she was nervous but determined. Maria was not like the other staff members who worked in the house. She was warm, genuine, and had a smile that could light up any room. When she cleaned, she hummed songs from her childhood. When she cooked, she put love into every dish. She treated everyone with kindness and respect, from the security guards to the gardeners. Marcus first noticed Maria on a Tuesday morning in September. He had come downstairs early to get some coffee before an important video call with investors in Japan. Usually the kitchen was empty at that hour, but he heard someone singing softly in Spanish. He found Maria preparing fresh fruit and making coffee. She was wearing a simple blue dress and had her dark hair pulled back. When she saw Marcus, she stopped singing and smiled. "Good morning, Mr. Sterling," she said in accented but clear English. "Would you like some coffee? I just made it fresh." Most of the staff in the house avoided talking to Marcus unless they had to. They were afraid of him because he was so wealthy and powerful. But Maria spoke to him like he was just a regular person. There was something refreshing about her natural, honest way of being. "Thank you," Marcus said, accepting the cup she offered. The coffee was better than anything his previous staff had ever made. "This is excellent. Where did you learn to make coffee like this?" Maria's eyes brightened. "My grandmother taught me when I was little. She said coffee should be made with patience and care, or it will taste bitter." She paused, then added, "She also said that food tastes better when you make it for people you care about." Marcus found himself lingering in the kitchen longer than usual, talking to Maria about small things. She told him about her sister's dream of becoming a nurse. She shared stories about her grandmother's little coffee shop in Colombia. She asked him questions about his work, and actually listened to his answers with genuine interest. For the first time in years, someone was treating Marcus like a human being instead of just a wealthy businessman. As weeks passed, Marcus began finding excuses to spend time in parts of the house where Maria was working. He would check on things that didn't need checking. He would ask questions about household matters that he had never cared about before. Victoria was usually gone during the day, attending her social events, so Marcus had opportunities to talk with Maria without anyone noticing. Maria brought something into the house that had been missing for a long time: warmth. She remembered that Marcus liked his coffee with just a little sugar. She noticed when he looked tired and would quietly leave a sandwich on his desk when he worked through lunch. She asked about his day and actually cared about his answer. When Marcus had a bad day dealing with difficult business problems, Maria would sense his mood. She would not push him to talk, but she would do small things that showed she cared. Maybe she would make his favorite soup for dinner, or leave fresh flowers on his desk. or simply offer him a genuine smile that reminded him that someone in the world saw him as more than just his money and success. Marcus began to realize that he was looking forward to these small interactions with Maria more than anything else in his day. When he woke up in the morning, he found himself hoping he would see her smile. When he came home from work, he felt disappointed if she had already left for the day. Victoria noticed none of these changes in her husband. She was too busy with her own life to pay attention to his moods or behavior. She had stopped really looking at Marcus years ago. To her, he was just part of her comfortable, wealthy lifestyle. As long as the money kept coming and their social status remained high, she was satisfied. The house staff began to notice that Mr. Sterling seemed different. He smiled more often. He was more patient when things went wrong. He even started learning a few words in Spanish so he could greet Maria in her native language. The other employees whispered among themselves about the change, but they were careful not to say anything directly. Marcus knew he was developing feelings for Maria, but he tried to convince himself it was just friendship. He was a married man from a completely different world. Maria was his employee. There were so many reasons why anything beyond friendship was impossible, but the heart does not always listen to reason. One evening in November, Marcus was working late in his home office when Maria knocked on the door. She had stayed late to help prepare for a dinner party Victoria was hosting the next night. "Mr. Sterling," she said softly, "I made some coffee. I thought you might need some." When Marcus looked up from his computer, he saw something in Maria's eyes that made his heart skip. There was a tenderness there, a caring that went beyond what an employee should feel for an employer. In that moment, he realized that Maria's feelings might be changing too. Neither of them said anything about what was happening between them that night, but both of them knew that something had shifted. The simple friendship that had been growing between them was becoming something deeper and more complicated. Winter arrived early that year, bringing cold winds and long, dark evenings to the Sterling mansion. Marcus found himself working from home more often, telling himself it was because the weather made commuting difficult. The truth was that he wanted to be near Maria. Their conversations had grown longer and more personal. Maria would bring Marcus his afternoon coffee, and somehow 20 minutes would pass as they talked about books, dreams, and life. She told him about the little town where she grew up, where everyone knew everyone else and families gathered every evening to share meals and stories. Marcus shared his childhood memories of building his first computer and dreaming of creating something that would change the world. "You did change the world," Maria said one snowy December afternoon as she dusted the bookshelves in his office. "Your software helps millions of people." Marcus looked up from his laptop. "Sometimes I wonder if I changed it for the better. I have all this money and success, but I feel like I lost something important along the way." Maria stopped dusting and looked at him directly. "What did you lose?" "Connection, I think. Real relationships. The ability to enjoy simple things." Marcus closed his laptop and leaned back in his chair. "When was the last time you felt truly happy, Maria?" She thought for a moment, a gentle smile crossing her face. "Yesterday, when I got a letter from my sister. She is doing so well in nursing school. Her professor said she has natural talent for helping people heal." Maria's eyes sparkled. "When I read that letter, I felt so proud and grateful that I cried happy tears." Marcus could not remember the last time he had felt that kind of pure joy about anything. His achievements brought him satisfaction and recognition, but not the deep happiness that Maria described. "What about you?" Maria asked. "When did you last feel truly happy?" Marcus was quiet for a long time. Then he said something that surprised even himself. "Right now, actually. Talking with you makes me feel more alive than I have felt in years." The words hung in the air between them. Both of them knew that something important had just been said. Maria looked down at the dust cloth in her hands, suddenly shy. Marcus felt his heart racing. Before either of them could say anything else, they heard Victoria's car pulling into the driveway. Maria quickly returned to her cleaning, and Marcus opened his laptop again. But the moment had changed everything between them. Victoria swept into the house carrying shopping bags from expensive stores. She was planning a New Year's Eve party and had spent the day buying decorations and a new dress. "Marcus, darling," she called out, not really looking for him. "I need to discuss the catering arrangements with you later." That evening at dinner, Victoria talked nonstop about party plans while Marcus ate quietly. She did not notice that he seemed distracted. She did not ask about his day or his work. She did not even look at him directly for more than a few seconds at a time. Their marriage had become a business arrangement where they shared a house and a social calendar, but nothing deeper. After Victoria went upstairs to make phone calls to her friends, Marcus walked to the kitchen. Maria was there, cleaning up after dinner. They worked together in comfortable silence, Marcus drying dishes while Maria washed them. "Your wife seems excited about the party," Maria said carefully. "Victoria loves entertaining. It is her favorite thing." Marcus paused. "We have grown very different over the years. She cares about appearances and social status. I used to care about those things too, but lately they seem less important." Maria nodded. She had observed the Sterling marriage from her position as household staff. She saw how coldly they treated each other, how they lived separate lives under the same roof. She had also seen the loneliness in Marcus's eyes, even before they became friends. "In my country," Maria said softly, "we have a saying, a house without love is just walls and furniture. A home needs warmth to be truly alive." Marcus felt the truth of those words deep in his heart. His mansion was full of expensive walls and furniture, but it had been missing warmth for many years. As January passed, Marcus and Maria spent more time together. He began helping her with small tasks around the house, something that shocked the other staff members. A billionaire businessman folding laundry or carrying cleaning supplies was not something anyone expected to see. Maria taught Marcus simple things that brought unexpected pleasure. She showed him how to make bread from scratch, explaining that kneading the dough was good for releasing stress. She brought him flowers from the garden and taught him the names of different plants. She shared stories from her culture that made him laugh. Marcus began to see his life differently through Maria's eyes. She helped him notice things he had forgotten to appreciate. The way morning sunlight came through the kitchen window, the sound of birds singing in the trees around his property, the simple satisfaction of preparing food with your own hands. One February evening, a major storm knocked out power to the mansion. The backup generators kept essential systems running, but most of the house was dark. Marcus found Maria in the kitchen, lighting candles and preparing a simple meal on the gas stove. "This reminds me of home," she said, looking peaceful in the candlelight. "When I was little, we lost power often during storms. My family would gather around candles and tell stories." Marcus sat with her at the kitchen table, eating soup and bread by candlelight. The simple meal tasted better than any fancy restaurant dinner he had ever had. They talked about dreams and fears, hopes and disappointments. In the quiet darkness, with just the sound of rain against the windows, Marcus felt more connected to another person than he had in decades. "Maria," he said quietly, "I need to tell you something." She looked at him, her dark eyes reflecting the candlelight. "I am falling in love with you," Marcus said. "I know it is wrong. I know it is complicated. But I cannot pretend anymore that what I feel is just friendship." Maria was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "I feel it too. I have tried not to, but I cannot help it." They reached across the table and held hands in the candlelight. Both of them knew that their lives were about to become much more complicated. The next morning, the power was restored and normal life resumed. But everything had changed between Marcus and Maria. They were no longer just a wealthy businessman and his employee who had become friends. They were two people who had fallen in love despite all the reasons why they should not have. Victoria noticed nothing different when she returned from a spa weekend with her friends. She was too busy planning her next social event to pay attention to the shift in atmosphere in her own house. But Marcus knew that he was standing at a crossroads. He could try to ignore his feelings and maintain his comfortable but empty marriage. Or he could follow his heart into unknown territory, knowing that the consequences might destroy the life he had spent decades building. Looking at Maria as she worked in his house, bringing warmth and joy to every room she entered, Marcus began to realize what choice his heart was making for him. Spring brought new life to the gardens around the Sterling mansion, but inside the house, tension was growing. Marcus and Maria were trying to act normal around the other staff and Victoria, but their feelings for each other were becoming harder to hide. They stole moments together whenever possible, early morning conversations over coffee, late evening talks when Victoria was out with friends, accidental touches when passing in hallways that sent electricity through both of them. Every interaction was charged with unspoken emotion. Marcus had never felt anything like this before. Even in the early days of his marriage to Victoria, their relationship had been based more on social compatibility than deep passion. What he felt for Maria was completely different. She made him want to be a better person. She brought out parts of his personality that had been sleeping for years. Maria was torn between her growing love for Marcus and her practical understanding of their situation. She knew that relationships between wealthy employers and their staff rarely ended well for the employee. She also knew that Marcus was married, even if his marriage appeared loveless. She tried to convince herself to ask for a transfer to another family, but she could not bring herself to leave. One April morning, everything changed. Victoria had left early for a charity board meeting. Marcus was working from his home office when Maria brought him coffee as she did every day. But this time when she set the cup on his desk, Marcus caught her hand gently. "Maria, we cannot keep pretending that what is happening between us is not real," he said. She looked into his eyes and saw the same struggle she felt every day. "Marcus, this is dangerous for both of us. You have a wife, a reputation, a whole life that could be destroyed." "My marriage has been over for years," Marcus said. "Victoria and I are just going through the motions. We are like business partners who happen to live in the same building. There is no love between us anymore. But I am your employee. I am from a different world. People will say terrible things about both of us." Maria's voice was full of concern, not just for herself, but for him. Marcus stood up and walked to where she was standing. "I do not care what people say. I have spent my whole adult life doing what was expected of me, building the career and marriage that looked perfect from the outside. But I have been miserable, Maria. You are the first person in years who makes me feel alive." He reached out and touched her face gently. "I am in love with you. Not just attracted to you. Not just grateful for your friendship. I am completely, deeply in love with you." Maria felt tears in her eyes. "I love you too, but love is not always enough to overcome all the obstacles in our way." "Maybe not," Marcus said. "But I want to try. I want to see if we can build something real together." Before Maria could respond, they heard Victoria's car in the driveway. She had forgotten something and come back home early. Marcus and Maria stepped apart quickly, but not before Victoria walked into the office and saw them standing very close together. Victoria was not stupid. She had been married to Marcus for 18 years and knew how to read his moods and behavior. She looked from Marcus to Maria and back again. Something in their body language, in the way they had jumped apart when she entered, told her everything she needed to know. "I forgot my portfolio," Victoria said coldly, walking to the desk and picking up a leather folder. She looked directly at Maria. "You can go now. I need to speak with my husband privately." After Maria left, Victoria closed the office door and turned to face Marcus. Her face was calm, but her eyes were angry. "How long has this been going on?" she asked. Marcus considered lying, but he was tired of pretending. "Nothing physical has happened, if that is what you are asking. But yes, Maria and I have feelings for each other." Victoria laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "Our maid. You are having an affair with our maid." "It is not an affair, Victoria. We have not crossed any physical lines. But I will not lie to you anymore. I am in love with her. And what exactly do you plan to do about that?" Victoria's voice was like ice. Marcus took a deep breath. He knew that what he was about to say would change everything. "I plan to ask you for a divorce." Victoria stared at him for a long moment. Then she sat down in the chair across from his desk, her mind clearly racing. "Do you have any idea what this will cost you? Our prenuptial agreement has clauses about infidelity. I could take half of everything you own." "I know," Marcus said, "but I cannot live this lie anymore. We have not been truly married for years, Victoria. We are just two people sharing expenses and social obligations. This is about more than money, Marcus." Victoria's voice was getting louder. "Think about your reputation. Think about your business. When people find out that you left your wife for the maid, how do you think that will look? You will become a joke in business circles." Marcus felt the weight of her words, but he also felt something else. Freedom. For the first time in years, he was being completely honest about what he wanted. "Maybe you are right," he said. "Maybe this will damage my reputation and cost me money. But staying in this empty marriage is killing something inside me. Maria makes me happy, Victoria. When was the last time you and I made each other happy?" Victoria was quiet for a moment, and Marcus saw something like sadness flash across her face. But it was quickly replaced by anger again. I will not make this easy for you. If you want to throw away everything we built together for some fantasy romance with the help, you will pay for it." That afternoon, Victoria called her lawyer. Within hours, divorce papers were being prepared. She also made several phone calls to friends, planting seeds of the story that would soon be spreading through their social circle. She wanted to make sure that her version of events reached important ears before Marcus had a chance to explain himself. Meanwhile, Marcus called Maria into his office again. "Victoria knows about our feelings for each other. I told her I want a divorce." Maria looked shocked. "Marcus, what have you done? This is going to destroy everything for you." "Maybe," Marcus said, "but I realized something today. I would rather have 1 year of real happiness with you than spend the rest of my life in a comfortable prison with Victoria." "But your business, your reputation, your money." Maria was frightened by how quickly everything was moving. Marcus took her hands in his. "Maria, I built my business from nothing once. If I have to, I can do it again. Money comes and goes. But finding someone who truly loves you for who you are, not what you own, is rare. I do not want to lose that." That evening, Victoria packed several suitcases and moved into the guest house on their property. She wanted to stay close enough to monitor the situation and protect her interests, but she could not bear to sleep under the same roof as Marcus anymore. The house staff were buzzing with gossip. Everyone knew that something dramatic was happening, but the details were still unclear. Maria felt the weight of everyone's stares and whispers. Some of the other employees looked at her with curiosity, others with judgment. Marcus called an emergency meeting with his business partners and lawyers. He knew that Victoria would soon be making her story public, and he needed to prepare for the storm that was coming. "This is going to be a mess," his lawyer warned him. "Victoria has hired one of the best divorce attorneys in the state. They are going to come after everything you own." "Let them," Marcus said. "I am not going to hide or apologize for falling in love." But even as he said those words, Marcus was beginning to understand the true cost of following his heart. The battle for his future was just beginning, and the aftermath was going to be more complicated than he had ever imagined. Within a week of Victoria filing for divorce, the story exploded across social media and business news. "Tech billionaire leaves wife for house staff" was the headline in 3 major newspapers. The gossip websites were even crueler, with headlines like "From Mansion to Maid, a Billionaire's Midlife Crisis." Marcus watched his reputation crumble in real time. His phone rang constantly with reporters asking for comments. Business associates who had smiled and shaken his hand for years suddenly became too busy to take his calls. 3 major clients canceled their contracts with his company, citing concerns about leadership stability. The board of directors at Sterling Technologies called an emergency meeting. Marcus sat at the head of the long conference table, facing 12 men and women who had helped him build his empire. Now they looked at him with disappointment and concern. "Marcus, we have known you for 15 years, said Robert Chen, the chairman of the board. "We have never questioned your business judgment before. But this personal situation is affecting the company's value. Our stock price has dropped 12% in 5 days. We understand that people get divorced," added Sarah Williams, the chief financial officer. "But the way this is being portrayed in the media makes us all look bad. Major investors are asking questions about your decision-making abilities." Marcus felt the weight of their criticism, but he also felt surprisingly calm. "I understand your concerns, but my personal life should not affect your confidence in my ability to run this company. My track record speaks for itself." "Your track record was excellent until last week," Robert said. "But now people are saying you threw away a stable marriage for a fantasy. They are questioning whether you might make equally irrational decisions about business matters." The meeting went on for 2 hours. In the end, the board decided to give Marcus 3 months to repair his image and restore confidence in the company. If he could not, they would consider removing him as CEO of the company he had founded. Meanwhile, Maria was facing her own challenges. Victoria had made sure that everyone in their social circle knew exactly who the other woman was. Maria could not go to the grocery store or the bank without people staring and whispering. Someone had even posted her picture online with cruel comments about gold diggers and home wreckers. "Maybe I should leave," Maria told Marcus one evening. They were sitting in his office, both of them exhausted from the constant pressure. "Maybe if I go away, people will forget about this story and your life can go back to normal." "Normal?" Marcus looked at her in surprise. "Maria, my normal life was empty and miserable. You are the best thing that has happened to me in decades. I am not going to let a bunch of gossips and newspaper reporters drive you away. But look what this is costing you, Maria said, tears in her eyes. Your business is suffering. Your friends have turned against you. Your reputation is ruined, all because of me. Marcus moved his chair closer to hers. No, all because of my choice. I chose to be honest about my feelings instead of living a lie. That was my decision, not yours. But what if it gets worse? What if you lose your company? What if you lose everything you worked so hard to build? Marcus was quiet for a moment, considering her questions seriously. Then we will figure out what comes next. Together. The divorce proceedings were brutal. Victoria's lawyer painted Marcus as a reckless man who had abandoned his responsibilities for a selfish fantasy. They argued that his behavior showed he could not be trusted with the family's assets. Marcus's lawyer fought back, presenting evidence of how the marriage had been over in all but name for years. They showed that Victoria had her own separate social life and had shown no interest in Marcus as a person, only as a provider of wealth and status. The legal battle dragged on for months. Every detail was reported in the newspapers and online. Maria felt like she was living under a microscope, with strangers judging her every move and decision. The stress began to affect Marcus's health. He lost weight and had trouble sleeping. Several of his oldest friends stopped speaking to him entirely. His sister called him from across the country to tell him he was throwing his life away for a woman who was probably only interested in his money. Everyone thinks I am using you, Maria told Marcus after a particularly difficult day dealing with reporters outside her apartment building. Maybe they are right. Maybe I am being selfish by staying. The people who think you are using me do not know you, Marcus replied. They do not see how you worry about my health. They do not know that you tried to talk me out of the divorce because you were concerned about what it would cost me. A gold digger would be encouraging me to spend money on her, not trying to protect my interests. But the pressure was getting to both of them. Their relationship, which had grown in quiet moments of connection, was now being tested by constant public scrutiny. Every time they went anywhere together, cameras followed them. Every conversation had to be careful in case someone was listening. Marcus's business partners began meeting without him to discuss major decisions. They claimed they were trying to protect the company from further damage, but Marcus felt like he was being pushed out of his own creation. One evening, Marcus came home to find Maria packing her belongings. I cannot do this anymore, she said without looking at him. This is destroying your life and I cannot watch it happen. Maria, stop, Marcus said, taking the clothes from her hands. Where will you go? What will you do? I will find another job somewhere far from here, maybe in another state where people do not know this story. You can tell everyone that I left, that you realized it was a mistake. Maybe then your reputation can recover. Marcus sat on the bed beside her suitcase. Do you remember what you told me about your grandmother's coffee? That it tastes better when you make it for people you care about? Maria nodded, confused by the change of subject. My whole life has been like bitter coffee, Marcus said. I built success and wealth, but there was no love in it. You brought the love, Maria. Without you, I will just be going back to bitter coffee. But at what cost? Maria asked. Is love worth losing everything else? Marcus looked around the expensive bedroom with its designer furniture and artwork. Then he looked at Maria, with her simple dress and worried expression and eyes full of care for him. Yes, he said simply, it is worth it. But even as he said those words, Marcus wondered if he would still feel the same way if he lost his company, his fortune, and everything he had spent his adult life building. Love was powerful, but so were the practical realities of life. The real test of their relationship was just beginning. The next morning brought news that would change everything again. Marcus's largest competitor had made an offer to buy Sterling Technologies. The board of directors was seriously considering the sale, which would remove Marcus from control of his own company. As Marcus read the offer, he realized that his choice to follow his heart might cost him even more than he had imagined. But looking at Maria, who had stayed despite her fears because she truly loved him, he knew there was no going back. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The buyout offer from Titan Corporation was for $2.8 billion. It was a generous offer, but it would mean the end of Marcus's control over the company he had built from nothing. The board scheduled a meeting for the following week to vote on whether to accept. Marcus spent sleepless nights reviewing financial documents and legal contracts. He was fighting a war on two fronts: the divorce proceedings with Victoria and the battle to keep his company. The stress was enormous, but Maria's presence kept him grounded. "You do not have to fight so hard," Maria told him one morning as they shared coffee before dawn. "Maybe losing the company would not be such a terrible thing. You could start something new, something smaller and more personal." Marcus looked at her with surprise. "You want me to give up?" "I want you to be happy," Maria replied. "I have watched you work 18-hour days for months, fighting to save your reputation and your business. But you look more tired and stressed than when we first met. Is this the life you want to live?" Her words made Marcus think about what really mattered to him. Sterling Technologies had been his whole identity for so long that he had forgotten who he was without it. But Maria was right that the constant fighting was wearing him down. 3 days before the board meeting, Marcus received an unexpected phone call. It was from James Morrison, a journalist who had been following the story of the divorce and business troubles. "Mr. Sterling, I have been investigating Victoria's lawyer and some of the business associates who have been working against you," Morrison said. "I think you need to see what I found." Marcus agreed to meet with Morrison at a small cafe downtown, away from the reporters who were still following him everywhere. Morrison brought a thick folder full of documents and photographs. "Your wife's divorce lawyer has been spreading stories about you to business reporters," Morrison explained. "But that is not illegal. What is interesting is this: 3 of the board members who are pushing for the company's sale have been secretly meeting with executives from Titan Corporation for 6 months. Marcus looked at the photographs Morrison showed him. They clearly showed Robert Chen and 2 other board members having dinner with Titan CEO long before the divorce scandal broke. "They have been planning to push you out for months," Morrison continued. "The divorce situation just gave them the perfect excuse. They are going to make millions from this sale, and they get to blame it all on your personal problems." Marcus felt anger rising in his chest, but also a strange sense of relief. His business troubles were not entirely his fault. He had been betrayed by people he trusted. "Why are you showing me this?" Marcus asked. Morrison smiled. "Because I hate seeing good people get destroyed by lies, and because I think there is more to your story with Maria than the gold digger narrative that everyone is pushing." "What do you mean?" "I have been watching how you two interact. I have interviewed people who know her. Maria Santos has a college degree in business from Columbia. She was working as a maid to support her sister's education, not because she had no other options. She could have found an easier job, but she chose to help her family instead." Morrison pulled out another folder. "I also found out that she has been sending most of her salary to pay for her sister's medical school. A woman who was really after your money would not be giving it all away to help someone else." That evening, Marcus showed Maria what Morrison had discovered. She was amazed by the journalist's research. "I never told you about my degree because I did not want you to think I was pretending to be something I was not," Maria explained. "I was proud to work as a maid. Honest work is nothing to be ashamed of." "You continue to surprise me," Marcus said. "Here I was feeling sorry for myself about business betrayal, and you have been dealing with much worse treatment from the media and the public. We have both been learning what people are really like when things get difficult," Maria replied. The board meeting took place on a gray Tuesday morning. Marcus walked into the conference room knowing that half the people there had been plotting against him for months. But he also walked in with evidence of their betrayal and a plan. "Before we vote on the Titan offer," Marcus announced, "I want to share some information with everyone." He presented Morrison's evidence of the secret meetings and the planned takeover. Several board members looked shocked. Others looked guilty. Robert Chen tried to deny everything, but the photographs and documents were clear evidence of his betrayal. "Even if we did meet with Titan, it was only to explore options for the company's future," he said defensively. "Options that would remove me and make you all very wealthy," Marcus replied. "But I have a counter-proposal." Marcus had spent the previous week putting together his own plan. Instead of selling to Titan, he would sell his controlling share of the company to his employees through an employee ownership program. It would give him less money than the Titan deal, but it would keep the company independent and protect the jobs of everyone who worked there. "This is ridiculous," Robert said. "The employees do not have the money to buy your shares." "They do not need cash up front," Marcus explained. "I have arranged financing through 3 different banks. The employees will pay for their ownership over 10 years using the company's own profits. Everyone who has worked here for more than 2 years will become a partial owner. The room was silent as board members considered this unexpected proposal. Marcus continued, I will retain 20% ownership and remain as CEO, but the majority control will belong to the people who actually do the work every day. Sarah Williams, who had not been part of the secret meetings with Titan, spoke up. This is actually brilliant. Employee-owned companies often perform better because everyone has a stake in success. Robert and his allies tried to argue against the plan, but Morrison's evidence of their betrayal had weakened their position. When the vote was taken, Marcus's employee ownership plan passed by a narrow margin. Within hours, news of the employee buyout spread through the business world. Instead of the expected sale to a corporate giant, Sterling Technologies was becoming one of the largest employee-owned companies in the tech industry. The story captured public attention in a completely different way. Tech CEO gives company to employees instead of selling to billionaire buyers, was the new headline. Suddenly, Marcus was being portrayed not as a reckless businessman, but as someone who cared more about his workers than maximizing profits. The shift in public opinion was dramatic. Business leaders who had been criticizing Marcus began calling to praise his innovative approach. The employee ownership model was being studied by other companies as a potential way to improve worker satisfaction and company performance. Maria watched these developments with amazement. A few weeks ago, everyone was saying you were crazy and irresponsible. Now they are calling you a visionary leader. The same action can look completely different depending on how people choose to see it, Marcus replied. When they thought I was just having a midlife crisis, everything I did seemed foolish. Now that they understand I was making principled decisions, the same actions look wise. The divorce proceedings also took an unexpected turn. Victoria's lawyer had built their entire case around Marcus being an unstable, reckless person who could not be trusted with money. But the employee ownership deal showed that Marcus was actually thinking carefully about long-term consequences and other people's welfare. Even more importantly, Morrison published a detailed article about Maria's background and character. The story revealed her education, her sacrifice for her sister's medical career, and her genuine kindness to everyone around her. Public opinion about their relationship began to change as well. I owe you an apology, Marcus's sister called to tell him. I believed all the terrible things the newspapers were saying about Maria. But after reading that article, I realized I was completely wrong about her. Similar calls came from old friends who had stopped speaking to Marcus months earlier. They had been influenced by the negative media coverage, but the new information made them reconsider their judgments. Victoria's position in the divorce was becoming weaker every day. Her claim that Marcus was mentally unstable and financially irresponsible looked foolish now that he was being praised for innovative business leadership. Her lawyer suggested that they consider settling the case instead of going to trial. Your husband has turned this situation around completely, Victoria's lawyer told her. A jury is likely to be sympathetic to a man who gave up corporate profits to help his employees, especially when he is obviously in love with a woman who has been supporting her family's education. Victoria was frustrated and angry, but she was also practical. She agreed to a settlement that gave her a substantial amount of money and property, but much less than she had originally demanded. On the day the divorce was finalized, Marcus felt a mixture of relief and sadness. His 18-year marriage was officially over, but he was also free to build a new life with Maria. Are you ready for whatever comes next? Maria asked him as they left the courthouse together. Marcus looked at the woman who had changed everything in his life. She had brought him love, yes, but also the courage to make difficult decisions based on his values instead of just social expectations. I am ready, he said, but I think the biggest surprises are still ahead of us. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, Marcus and Maria were married in a small ceremony in her hometown in Colombia. The wedding was nothing like the grand social event that Marcus's first marriage had been. Instead of hundreds of business associates and society friends, there were 30 people who truly cared about the couple. Maria's family welcomed Marcus with warmth and curiosity. Her grandmother, who was 92 years old and still sharp as a knife, pulled him aside after the ceremony. You gave up a lot to marry our Maria, she said in Spanish, which Marcus now understood fairly well. I hope you know what a treasure you found. I do, Marcus replied in his improving Spanish. She saved my life in ways I am still discovering. The old woman smiled. Love is not about finding someone perfect. It is about finding someone who makes you want to be the best version of yourself. Marcus and Maria settled into a new life that was simpler but much richer than his previous existence. They sold the massive Sterling mansion and bought a comfortable house with a large garden, where Maria could grow the flowers and vegetables she loved. Marcus kept one classic car and donated the rest to a charity that provided transportation for people who could not afford their own vehicles. The employee ownership structure at Sterling Technologies was working, even better than Marcus had hoped. Without the pressure to maximize profits for distant shareholders, the company began developing more innovative products and treating its workers with greater respect. Productivity increased, employee satisfaction soared, and the company's reputation in the industry improved dramatically. Marcus found that he enjoyed his work more than he had in years. Instead of spending all his time in meetings with investors and board members who only cared about quarterly profits, he was able to focus on the creative and technical aspects of the business that had originally inspired him to start the company. You seem like a completely different person than when we first met, Maria observed one evening as they worked together in their garden. I feel like a completely different person, Marcus replied. I spent so many years trying to build something impressive from the outside that I forgot to make sure it was fulfilling from the inside. But the most unexpected development came exactly 1 year after their wedding. Maria discovered she was pregnant. I thought this might never happen for us, she told Marcus when she shared the news. I was afraid that all the stress from the divorce and the media attention might have affected my health. Marcus was overjoyed but also nervous. At 44 years old, he had never been a father. He had always assumed that children were something that might happen someday in the distant future, but someday had suddenly become now. What if I am terrible at this? He asked Maria. I know how to run a business and write computer code, but I know nothing about raising children. Maria laughed. Nobody knows how to be a parent until they become one. We will figure it out together, just like we have figured out everything else. The pregnancy progressed smoothly, and Marcus found himself experiencing emotions he had never felt before. When he saw the ultrasound images of their baby, he cried with joy. When Maria felt the first kicks, he spent hours with his hand on her belly, amazed by the miracle of life growing inside her. Their daughter was born on a snowy February morning. They named her Sophia, which meant wisdom in Spanish. Marcus held his newborn daughter in his arms and felt his heart expand in ways he had never imagined possible. She is perfect, he whispered to Maria as Sophia slept peacefully in his arms. She is ours, Maria replied, and Marcus understood that she meant something deeper than just biological parenthood. This child was the product of their love story, the living symbol of the choice they had made to follow their hearts despite all the obstacles. Becoming a father changed Marcus in ways that surprised everyone, including himself. The man who had once worked 18-hour days now insisted on leaving the office early enough to give Sophia her evening bath. The businessman who had once measured success only in dollars and company growth now talked about wanting to create a better world for his daughter to inherit. I used to think success meant having the biggest house, the most expensive car, the most impressive title, Marcus told a group of business students who had invited him to speak at their university. But real success is about the quality of your relationships and the positive impact you make on other people's lives. The students listened intently as Marcus told them about his journey from empty success to genuine fulfillment. He talked about the importance of choosing love over fear, authenticity over appearances, and meaningful work over just making money. After the speech, a young woman raised her hand. Mr. Sterling, do you ever regret giving up so much wealth and status to marry Maria? Marcus smiled. I did not give up anything important. I traded things that looked impressive for things that actually matter. My bank account is smaller now, but my life is infinitely richer. Victoria had remarried within a year of the divorce, choosing a hedge fund manager who was even wealthier than Marcus had been. She seemed happy with her new life, and the bitter anger from the divorce proceedings had faded into indifference. She occasionally saw photos of Marcus and Maria in business magazines, but they felt like pictures of strangers from another life. Meanwhile, Maria's sister Elena had graduated from medical school and was working as a nurse in a children's hospital. She visited Marcus and Maria often, delighting in her role as Sophia's aunt, and marveling at how her sister's brave choice to work as a maid had led to such an unexpected love story. "You know what I think is the most amazing part of your story?" Helena asked Marcus one evening as they watched Sophia take her first wobbly steps across the living room. "What is that? Everyone expected your choice to end in disaster. People said you were throwing your life away for a fantasy. But look what actually happened. Your company is more successful than ever. You have a family that brings you joy every day. You are respected in ways that go deeper than just being rich." Marcus caught Sophia as she stumbled toward him, her face bright with the excitement of her new walking ability. "The aftermath really was unexpected," he agreed. "But not because everything fell apart like people predicted. It was unexpected because everything came together in ways I never could have planned." Looking back, Marcus realized that his decision to choose Maria over his comfortable but empty life had set off a chain of positive changes that continued to surprise him. The employee ownership structure at his company had inspired other businesses to try similar approaches. His story had encouraged other people to prioritize authentic relationships over social status. His marriage to Maria had created a family filled with love and purpose. The billionaire businessman who had chosen his maid over his marriage had indeed experienced truly unexpected aftermath. Instead of losing everything, he had gained the only things that really mattered: genuine love, meaningful work, and the deep satisfaction of living authentically. As Sophia fell asleep in his arms that night, Marcus whispered to her in Spanish using words Maria's grandmother had taught him. "Mi amor, the most important thing I can teach you is this. When you find something real and true, do not let other people's fear talk you out of it. The heart knows things that the mind cannot understand." The little girl smiled in her sleep, and Marcus knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, his family would face them together with love, wisdom, and the courage to choose what truly mattered over what merely looked impressive to others.